So, as I was saying, we are going to focus on the differences compared to the xDrive50 I tested last year. And first of all, I like this color a lot better than the Sophisto gray I had on the 50 version. It looks a lot better and it does highlight the shapes of the car a lot more. And initially when BMW launched this car, I was a bit reticent to its design, but I have to say, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but I am getting used to it and I'm starting to actually like it. And this car in this configuration is a magnet of looks around town. Anywhere you go, everybody will be looking at you, because there are two main reasons for that. This is a very new car and it does look in some way. So this is the front end. The car is fitted with the sport package, which brings these black trims on the front bumper over here that mimic what would otherwise be considered an M Sport package on conventional cars. We still have that huge grille up front, which has a protective film applied to it that makes sure in case you scratch it or dent it on the highway, it can be fixed using just a heat gun. Basically, it regenerates itself. This is where you add washer fluid, and the front camera over here has a washer in case it gets dirty. The headlamps are using laser technology and the car looks absolutely brilliant. We have 21-inch wheels on this model, on riding on Pilot Alpine 5 Michelin tires, and we have these very nice trims over here. Done in titanium gold. It's an option, as you can see, there are highlights over here as well. It's an option that absolutely makes the car stand out. Round the back, this clean cut design of the car, which is meant to make it as aerodynamic as possible, is also quite visible. The car looks good in my opinion, especially in the back, and we have this badge over here for the xDrive40 model. I'm going to talk about the specs a bit later on, but I think it looks brilliant. Now let's step inside and see the exquisite leather we have here. So absolutely stunning. It's a chestnut color, kilted pattern everywhere, and this leather has been treated with natural olive extracts to make sure the process is as eco-friendly as possible. The other car we had on this channel was wearing that textile interior done in blue and gray, but this one is the top-notch version and it's an optional extra that costs about 3,500 euros. Also, the most expensive option on this car is the Bowers and Wilkins sound system that has a lot of speakers everywhere, including in the headrest, on the roof liner. Let's see if you can catch it on camera over here, and on the dashboard, on the doors and so on. It's absolutely brilliant. It has 4D sound and it sounds absolutely marvelous. I also like this crystal button over here that allows you to adjust your driving position. I don't like the fact that they complicated things, but we're going to talk about that a bit later on. This is the instrument cluster and the multimedia system. They are a single unit right now. It's a curved display and actually they look good. They have a very high resolution and respond decently to your inputs, but they do have a bit of lag. And this is a symbol that reminds you that this leather has been treated as eco-friendly as possible. Now let's get behind the wheel and see what kind of differences I noticed between these two cars. So, what does the xDrive40 feel like when you set off? Well, it's really close to the xDrive50 version I drove last year. As a matter of fact, everything inside is the same. The driving position is the same. You sit just as up high, the visibility is the same, the comfort is the same, everything is the same. But let's talk about the technical specs for a bit, because this is the entry-level iX, and a lot of people will be looking at it simply because it is a bit cheaper than the xDrive50. But there's a reason for that. Now, the drivetrain on this car is made up of 2 electric motors and 1 battery. The two electric motors can deliver 326 horsepower and up to 664 Newton meters of torque. The battery is considerably smaller than on the xDrive50. So not only you lose power compared to the 523 horsepower of the xDrive50 and 765 Newton meters of torque, but you also lose a significant chunk of battery. That's because this car has a battery of a usable capacity of 71 kilowatt hours, whereas the xDrive50 had a capacity of 105 kilowatt hours. And the bad news is that you can't get the larger battery on this car. So the xDrive50 has the upper hand in that regard. Now, you would think that since it has less power than the xDrive50, this car would be more efficient, but that's not exactly true. I did my usual range test, real-life range test with this car, and I noticed that the energy consumption figures are different, but by a very small margin. Now, you can watch that video if you want to. I'm gonna drop a link over here, and you can check out just what kind of energy consumption figures I got. They are very close to the xDrive50. Therefore, the range of this car is smaller than in the case of the xDrive50, simply because it has a smaller battery. But the changes don't stop there in this regard, because this car also has a slower charging rate. The xDrive50 can charge at up to 200 kilowatts, while this car can take only up to 155. So it will take a similar amount of time to charge them because this car has a smaller battery. But if you don't want to reach a full charge whenever you're on the road, the xDrive50 will recharge more energy in a shorter time. So you need to keep that in mind if you're deciding between these two cars. Dynamically though, there aren't a lot of differences because both of them are rather heavy. You can feel that in both cars. However, of course, the xDrive50 is faster with a sprint of 4.6 seconds, whereas this car will take 6.1 seconds to reach 100 kilometers an hour. It's not neck-breaking, but not everyone is looking to win drag races everywhere it goes. And you have plenty of punch for most situations. The car is fast enough, even at highway speeds. You can do 180, 200 kilometers an hour easily with it, as long as you keep in mind the fact that the power consumption will go up considerably if you do those kinds of speeds. So yeah, keep that in mind. But overall, this car has, as I said, enough power for the size. I don't think anyone can complain about 320 horsepower on a car, no matter what kind of size it has. I will remind you that there's a BMW X7 out there with 340 horsepower and considerably less torque than this car, and nobody complains about that either. So as I said, the range is kind of smaller than the xDrive50. The energy consumption is similar, so the difference in range is due to the fact that this car has a smaller battery. Now, in terms of refinement, both cars are exquisite. They are incredibly quiet inside and they are comfy, but the xDrive50 does get a air suspension as standard and the xDrive40 doesn't. This car doesn't even have it ticked on as an optional extra, and you can feel that in the road because this passive suspension, it's not exactly passive, but it doesn't have air dampers, is a bit stiffer than the one I had on the xDrive50, and you can feel that when driving around town, especially on rougher surfaces. Furthermore, we have 21-inch wheels on this car compared to the 20-inch wheels I had on, well, see, technology for you. So, getting back to the suspension, this car has a stiffer setup compared to the xDrive50. You can get the air suspension if you want to, but if you're setting off to configure a car like this in order to save money compared to the xDrive50, you will be paying a lot of attention to every single option you tick on in order to keep the cost relatively low, because if you reach 110,000 euros like this car, that's a lot of money, and the xDrive50 I drove last year was only 10,000 euros more. So at that point, it's really worth the extra money. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to help you figure out which one is better for you. So if you want a car with a longer range due to its bigger battery, I think the xDrive50 is the one for you. You also get more power with it and more standard features. If you're looking for a car that you are only going to use around town most of the time, with a limited amount of range, this car might also be for you, because it might have a smaller range, but you also pay less money for it. And if you're only doing shorter trips, it should be enough for you. Also, if you want to get out of the city from time to time, but not for incredibly long road trips, you have about 200 kilometers of range in the battery at 130 kilometers an hour. So it should be good enough, but it's not going to be as comfortable on longer trips compared to the xDrive50, because you'll have to make more stops overall. So overall, this is what I could tell you about the differences between the two. I'm trying to help you decide which one is better for you, and I think I've given you plenty of information to make that decision a bit easier. Hoping that you guys enjoyed my video, I'm gonna stop it right here, and I will be asking you politely to like, share, and of course subscribe if you like this content, because it keeps the channel alive. Until next time, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.